That's
right?
nice. That's nice.
Re-dropping in the chat the sign-in sheet.
Please fill it out so we can keep talking to you. There's always fun stuff we want to tell you about. How many people are enjoying the weather? Because I know that I am. I see those hands that clap, Alec.
What have y'all been doing to enjoy the weather, the recent spring that we're having?
Lots of walks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I just did that today. Had a one-on-one with someone that was a walk from like Northwest Coffee, so around Central West in there. I was like, man, it's nice over here. That like whole cortex area. I'm like, wow, gentrification is wild.
I've been
Real.
doing some canvassing up there these past
Mhm.
few weeks, and I like didn't even realize how nice some of the houses were in that area. I was like,
Right.
wait a second.
I see Logan say doing some small hikes when I can. Feel free to drop any of your favorite hiking locations in the chat because I'm always looking for places to put on a list to never go to, but hopefully to eventually actually go to now that it's warm. We're going to begin starting in a couple minutes for anyone who just joined, but please make sure to sign in so we can keep track of who's coming and keep you up to date on the other stuff we have going on.
Sign-in sheet is in the chat. Yeah, my favorite place to hike is Castlewood. But it's also like I've just been there so many times. Beautiful views.
How far is that from here?
It takes me like 25-minute drive.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know. Oh, Cheryl agrees with Castle. I know that Cheryl is always right with everything, so I'm just gonna go with what Cheryl. All right, well, wait one more minute. There's some people to join. Oh, it's cold. We are aware that this is almost a full year since a lot of people have been working from home or doing things virtually, and that Zoom fatigue is real. So when there are meetings that don't necessarily feel like urgent, like come today for the meeting tomorrow, that sometimes it's hard to get. I know that I have a hard time for the meetings that I'm not leading, getting to them. So
Yeah.
but I guess we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our March monthly movement meeting. My name is Madison Orozco. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Community Collaborations Fellow at Arch City Defenders, as well as one of the lead organizers on the Close the Workhouse campaign. And Jay just dropped the sign-in sheet for this meeting in the chat, so please make sure to fill it out so we can stay in touch. And I'll toss it over to you, Jay.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm the abolition organizer with Action St. Louis. I'm happy to have all of you all here. I just let somebody else in the chat, or in the room, so I'm going to drop in the chat again the sign-in sheet. Please make sure you sign in so we can keep in touch with y'all. Let you know what's going on. Well, this month is Women's History Month. Last month was Black Futures Month. I like to call it Black Women's History Month. And so we're gonna do just like take a moment to talk about who is a Black woman that inspires you. Feel free to drop it in the chat. Feel free to come off mute. Could be anybody local. Could be your auntie. I will model.
I was like, I know y'all have a Black woman who inspires you. So if you need one of us to model, we will. But we're not going to sit here on this call and pretend like we don't know a few people in this city who we could talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, Tashara in the chat already. Tashara.
Mine's is Kayla Reed.
Mm-hmm.
My boss, my co-conspirator, someone who, has this deep vision of a St. Louis that is really progressive and provides a lot of love and care for Black folks, and it's like really transformed the landscape. So, yeah.
I see that Cheryl put in the chat, my mother inspired me, taught me to be an independent thinker and to try and excel in everything that I do. Love that. That for a lot of people, her mom can be that person who really does that for us. So thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who just hopped in, for a little icebreaker, we're just talking about who is a Black woman that inspires you in honor of last month being Black History, Black Future, Black Forever month, and this is being Women's History Month. So drop it in the chat or you can come off mute. I see Cole has a hand raised. So number one, so good to see you, Cole. Let's play volleyball again soon since it's warm. But who's on your mind?
Absolutely. I miss you too. I just have to give a shout out to Whitney Benz. I don't know if many people know her on this call, but she's a good friend of mine. She's a consultant and really focuses on difficult conversations, which is so hard to do. But she has taught me a lot and just recently moved here to St. Louis. So I want to give her a little shout out.
One day I hope to be Whitney. I hope to be like Whitney, too. Like Whitney's everything. I see someone said my friend Brittany and also Corey Bush, definitely have Ella Baker, and Angela Davis for constantly teaching us for a better future is possible. Also Meghan Markle finally taking down the royal family. Interview airing on CBS at 8:00 on Sunday. If you're ready, you better hit your DVR or record videotape, whatever you're doing these days with your tech. That's going to be a fun interview. Anybody else? I will say, who has not already been said? I'm trying to think. There's so many people. I will just echo the Black girl magic, political magic that we see in St. Louis. Just Kayla Reed in my mind at the helm of things. Really, whatever Kayla wants in St. Louis is going to happen because that's the vision for St. Louis. And then seeing that manifested in the recent elections of this week, and then with Corey Bush, it just feels nice to be represented by people that not only look like me, but also represent my values as well. Oh my God, Inez. I can't believe I didn't say Inez. Like Inez is like the number one in my mind. Yes, 100,000 million% Inez Z. Thank you so much for also driving that. And the women of CTW, Jocelyn and Deidre are some of our most, some are just super great members who have done so much amazing work and amazing advocacy. So we are so lucky to have them be a part of this campaign. And then Jamal Rogers, definitely. Octavia Butler, Jennifer Cobinums. Look at this. Look at all these people. I need to save this chat so I can make sure to familiarize myself with all these people. Yeah, well, thank you everyone for sharing all of this. This is really great to just see. Black women have been, are, will be the main engine behind the change that we really see in the world and especially in St. Louis. So it's important that we are constantly uplifting and applauding Stacey Abrams. Yeah, definitely. Well, welcome. Like I said earlier, we're so happy to have everyone. I forgot to say this earlier, so apologies, but this meeting is recording and it's being streamed live on the Deaconess Foundation YouTube. So if you don't want your face to be on that, then just, turn off your camera. But so we're going to start with some organizational updates, and I will start with Arch City when I open the email to make sure I have all of the best updates coming out, but something that I can say quickly at the top of my head. Next Now, well, it's next Tuesday, correct? Next Tuesday. Yeah. So at Arch City, we've been starting these events. Wednesday?
The 10th.
Oh, wow. Oof. Yes. Okay. So our ACD Live, which is a series of virtual conversations. And so these are basically us taking the time to talk about some of these main like criminal justice reform and public health issues that we see in St. Louis and the work that we're doing at Arch City around these issues. And so we had previously one about the crisis in St. Louis jails, which was really great. And where we had a lot of impacted folks and family members talking about their experiences like in the jails and just talking about what's really going on. So our next one, thank you, Noelle, is going to be on March 10th, next Wednesday. And we're going to be talking about the re-envisioning public safety pillar of the People's Plan and digging deeper into the work that Arch City is doing around that. So after I'm done talking, I'll put the link in the chat, but you can register for that. And it's going to be a really great conversation. Nawel, who's also on the call now, will also be a part of that event. So that's going to be really great. So that's something else we have coming up. Some other things that have been going on. We have been, we've heard, we've been getting constantly these calls to our jail hotline at Arch City about all the craziness and everything that has been, and the real crisis and the public health crisis that has gone really unaddressed by our administration, but that is really ravaging our jails. And so many people continue to call and confirm these conditions. And so we are working really hard to make sure that this is public and that people are able to hear what people are saying and what's truly going on. So it's this St. Louis Jails Crisis Stories from the Front Line. So if you check out Arch City Defenders Facebook page and any of our social media, we're posting this audio and really just diving deeper in and talking about what is going on in these. So make sure to check that out on our page. And then also in the past week or so, we had a lawsuit filed in St. Clair County. And so one of our clients, George Ritchie, was an honorably discharged Army veteran, father and grandfather. But for 5.5 years, St. Clair County has demanded that he pay court money that he couldn't afford, and which he can't afford to do so, like using his Social Security, disability income. So money that he constitutionally should not have to pay them for time that he has spent in jail. And as a result, he's been unlawfully jailed and taken away from his family and faced setback after setback. And so because of that, we've been working along with co-counsel at Arch City to file a lawsuit in federal court to put an end to St. Clair's practice of extracting Social Security benefits for court and jail costs. And just in general, there's so much going on in St. Clair County that is not good. So we have started the lawsuit there. And if you go to either our website or our social media, you can find places where there's also audio recordings from Mr. Ritchie talking about his own story and what's going on there. So those are some of the main updates, some of the main things that we've been focusing on for us. And I'll pass it over to you, Jay, for action updates. And I know there are a couple other Arch City people on the call. So if there's anything I missed, definitely like drop it in the chat, or you can come back to it after Jay, but I'll pass it over to you, Jay, to do some of the action updates.
Yeah. So Action is currently hiring canvassers for the April election. Trying to drop it in the chat, but Navi. I'm gonna drop the Facebook in the chat. But yeah, so we're hiring full-time canvassers at $17 an hour. You'll be working on canvassing for Tashara, who we've endorsed, me putting on my C4 hat, and a few alders who we've endorsed. We're also hiring part-time phone bankers. So if you are interested in working or know someone who needs a job, please have them email milkayla@actionsto.org. I'm just dropping the Action Power Project Facebook, and all that information is on our Facebook. On the housing front, the moratorium is up April 1st. And so, yeah, we just put out our housing justice organizer, Kennard, and as well as like with a bunch of other folks, dropped a statement really calling on Mayor Lyda and County Executive Sam Page, who are sitting on millions of dollars of rental assistance funds to release that to folks who are right now threatening to be evicted after this moratorium's up. So you can read more about that there. As well as we are launching a Defund the Police campaign, which we are calling Defund, Reimagine, and Transform, which Defund is about, stripping funds away from the SLMPD and investing into community-based systems of safety and care and prevention and de-escalation, really to reduce the size and scope and power of the police budget to zero. And yeah, so we are launching that next week, March 9th. We are having a teaser at 6 p.m. And once we make a Facebook event, I will share that out in an email because we don't have that made yet. But the teaser will be talking about what we mean by defund the police, what we mean by reimagine alternatives to policing, and what we mean by transforming our landscape from divesting from the carceral systems and investing into people. Yeah, that's it on action updates. I believe that, no, I was saying the teaser is set to the 16th. I'm pretty sure no, that's a primer. I mean, so it's a teaser and then we're doing webinars. So the webinar is the 16th. Nobody from Bill Project is here, but I know that they are still bailing folks out. Things are kind of slow right now just because most folks now are on no bond allowed. So, before they could get folks out more en masse, and now it's a little bit slower. And that's really as a response to litigation from ACD suing for unconstitutional bail practices and them trying to hold folks in there. Yeah, that is it for updates.
Great. Yeah, so as y'all know, there's always a lot going on. I know Action and Arch City both have I don't know how often Action's newsletter goes out, but we all have newsletters that are going out and stuff, and I believe the Bail Project does as well. So if you want to stay up to date on everything that's going on more than once a month, make sure you can go to Action's website or Arch City Defender's website or the Bail Project, and you can sign up for those newsletters. So you can also constantly be in the loop. And then, of course, always be following on all of the socials because most of us put everything on the socials as well. So, but yeah, so tonight we're basically going to, we're going to kind of focus on three things. We're first going to talk about, Nawel is going to take some time to talk about the city budgeting process. So basically, for us now with Close the Workhouse, the next big fight for us, the next big opportunity for us to defund the workhouse is in the budgeting process. So when the city is determining what the budget is going to be, there's opportunity for things to be defunded, for money to be taken out. And so Nawel is going to talk a bit about more about that and what that looks like. And then we're going to move and talk a bit about the shifting political landscape of St. Louis, which is very much, very impacted by the election that we just had this week. So we're going to talk a bit about those results and then some general kind of what that means for St. Louis. And then we're going to finish by talking about our new kind of organizing plan and goal over the next month or two as we're preparing for this budget process. So that's going to kind of be our focus. We'll have some time for questions at the end, but of course, always drop any questions or raise in the chat or raise your hand. We super casual, not super formal. So, but yeah, so I'll pass it over to Nawel so you can go ahead and get started. And thanks so much again for coming and helping us talk about this tonight.
Thanks, Madison. So basically, St. Louis is going to have a new mayor who will be inaugurated on April 20th, 2021. And the very next day, April 21st, they will have their first meeting of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. And the Board of Estimate and Apportionment is the city's primary budgeting body. Indeed, it may be Tashara, we 501c3 hat on. So, but this organizing and the pressure will be important regardless of who's mayor. But essentially, the mayor, so let's back up about how the city gets passed. The city's fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. So every year on June 30th or before then, the city must pass a new budget appropriating funds. In order for a budget to pass, it needs to be approved by two bodies: the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, which is made up of the mayor, the president of the Board of Aldermen, and the comptroller, and the Board of Aldermen. The Board of Estimate and Apportionment gets a first cut at the budget, essentially. So the budget director works for the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. He's appointed by 2 out of 3 of them. And the budget director meets with all of the department heads. They're meeting not right now, this very moment, but February, January, March. The budget director is meeting with the department heads and putting together a budget. Then they submit that proposed budget to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment in early April. Then the Board of Estimate and Apportionment has some time to basically consider it. And then when a new mayor is elected, there's actually a new budget presentation. So on the 21st, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment will receive a long budget presentation from the budget director where he explains the budget, and the new mayor will have an opportunity to vote on it. But what's actually going to happen, they might have some amendments that very first day. What's actually going to happen is that then the Board of Estimate and Apportionment will hold a public hearing. And typically when there's a new mayor, that public hearing will be that Friday. So it'll probably be on Friday the 23rd, or at least that's what happened when Crewson took office. So essentially on the 21st, there's a budget presentation where the budget director delivers the budget to ENA. Then on the 23rd, there will be a public hearing open for public comment. So that is certainly something to mobilize around and get out and put pressure on and explain what we want to see from a budget. And I'll flag a few kind of key questions that are going to be determined in the budget in a moment, the big one being close the workhouse. And then the Board of Estimate and Apportionment has to finally pass out their budget on April 30th or before April 30th. They could do it before, typically they pass it out on April 30th. Because they have to get it to the Board of Aldermen by May 1st. So then the budget goes over to the Board of Aldermen, and the Board of Aldermen holds, really the Ways and Means Committee holds hearings. And what happens there is that the Board of Aldermen has very limited power. The Board of Aldermen has very limited power. They can't add anything onto the budget, but they can cut. So if the Board of Aldermen takes ENA's budget and just cuts something out of it and approves the budget, that's final. But what happens more typically is that the Ways and Means Committee has ideas about things that they want to add. So what they do is that they write a letter to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, and then they send the budget back to the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. And then the Board of Estimate and Apportionment meets, usually sometime in June, to further amend the budget. And by the way, in this process, the mayor and the comptroller and the president then just get to add some of their own things too. So essentially, then the Board of Estimate and Apportionment takes the Ways and Means Committee's recommendations, adds them back in, sends the budget back to the Board of Aldermen, and then the Board of Aldermen typically passes it out. And they have to do it by June 30th. And if they don't do it by June 30th, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment's budget that they submitted to the board goes into effect. So it's a bit of a silly process because the Board of Aldermen doesn't have much power. I frankly think that it should be replaced with a process that doesn't even include the Board of Estimate and Apportionment and all occurs in the public eye and gives the Board of Aldermen power to add and remove and has a lot more hearings and public comment and question, but that's not the point. The point is that we are going to have a budget fight because there's at least a few big issues that are going to be on there. The first one is defunding the workhouse, right? We've realized by now that simply passing a bill, if it doesn't have teeth and if there's no will to implement it, doesn't mean anything. But actually defunding the workhouse will make it impossible for the city to keep it open. And so that's the very first thing to just focus on. The next question is, okay, where do we move that money? And we know exactly where we want to move that money to. We want to move it to the Division of Supportive Reentry and establishing a social work program that supports people moving in and out of the criminal legal system with case management and with wraparound services. And then we also know we want to move it into a division to re-envision public safety, as well as probably some, because as we're learning in CJC, city jails are just there's pretty traumatic and disturbing conditions in there. Some funds for improved medical care in particular. But that also doesn't need to come out of the workhouse money. That may be a separate fight. But those are a few things on the correctional side. Another big fight will be over the police budget. And I'll just share briefly. Jay and I were talking about this earlier today, but the city currently spends about $232 million on policing. If you pull together SLMPD and pensions and a variety of other police units. And it comes out to about $200,000 per police officer. And there's just a lot better things that we could be spending money on. And it gets especially ridiculous if you look at some of the specific pieces. But the kind of low-hanging fruit in the police budget is overtime, because we just know that there's a ton of fraud there. So Auditor Galloway, Nicole Galloway, did a report a while, not that long ago, actually, it was pretty recent, that found that the police department had something like $14 million in overtime. And that was based on 2018 numbers. I hear from folks inside that right now it's closer to 16 million. And that's insane. If you look at St. Louis County, which has a roughly analogous force size, they are spending $6 million. And the reason for this $10 million gap is fraud. It's very simple. Police officers aren't actually working all the hours they claim to work, and they file for that overtime, and they just take home higher salaries. And so we can take that money off the police department without impacting officers on the street, without impacting anything except the fact that we will no longer be funneling fraudulent money to police officers. So we aim to at least defund that overtime by $10 million. And in practice, the way you actually do that is that you cut vacant positions. Because SLMPD actually doesn't budget for 16 million in overtime. It budgets for like 6 or 7 million in overtime. And then it also has about 150 or more actually vacant positions. And then that extra money becomes a slush fund from which they pay out the overtime. So that's probably more detail than is necessary strictly. I'm getting a feeling that I'm rambling on too long. But those are two pieces that are going to be on the budget. The other kind of really big fiscal note to make is that the city will be receiving shortly. We don't actually know exactly the timeline. It depends on when the Biden stimulus is passed, and it depends on when Treasury transfers the funds, the US Treasury Department. But we will be receiving about $482 million from the federal government that the new mayor will be responsible for allocating. It's an obscene amount of money. Our general fund right now is $481.6 million. And prioritizing those funds and thinking through what an equitable distribution mechanism for it is, what the investments that our communities need are, I think it needs to be a robustly participatory process, and that's just something we're going to need to be deeply engaged in. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Noel. So I know, like, for me personally, when I moved to St. Louis, and even when I started working at Arch City and Close the Workhouse stuff, I had no real understanding of like the budget process or just of the way in which it is like a tool that you can really use to really work to try and make change and for us to try and close the workhouse. So yes, I was about to echo what Amelia just said. Thank you, because that is really helpful to help give us the context, because I know some people were around for last year's budget fight, but not everyone. So
and I'll also answer that I know this could all be confusing. So if anyone has questions, feel free to message me. Or
Stan, that is so true. If Inez were here, she probably would have already said this like 3 times, but budgets are moral documents, and where you put your money shows us what you care about and what you prioritize. And what we found out time and time again is that that's not, the city doesn't prioritize the things that it should be prioritizing. And this is a perfect transition into focusing on kind of like the potential changing landscape of St. Louis. But I think it also shows that our officials have been prioritizing things that the people of St. Louis don't prioritize. And it's been made clear now really what what people do prioritize. And so before we start talking about it, I would just love to see like a show of hands, either in like the raise hand function or putting like a me in the chat. But like, how many people were like really surprised with like any part of the election results? Like, how many people, when you looked at them, you were like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. Just want to get a sense of like where people are with the election this week. Okay, I see Jay. I have a hand. Noelle has a hand up. We do appreciate you, Stan, by the way. Thank you so much for being here. I know Stan's at like 12 different meetings every week. So, well, I'll say I can start by saying yes. I see Cole hand up. Yeah. Amelia. Yeah. Me. Totally forgot about approval voting. Yeah. I mean, I even understood like how that there was approval voting, but also like and voted for it, but didn't fully understand exactly like how it would work, or wasn't sure if it would like backfire. Like I didn't really know what to expect. It was all very new. It was my first approval voting election. But I think what we really found out is that St. Louisans are not okay with the status quo anymore. And that's made clear by the fact that the two candidates that have made it to the runoff election are in a lot of ways very different, or show a different vision of what St. Louis can be, a more progressive vision of what St. Louis can be, and do not, rely on old tropes or old explanations for things that don't make sense, or the old, we can't make this change is too fast, too quick, we don't have the money for this, we don't have the time for this, XYZ. And so I think like that is something that's really important and impactful for us to know, and for us to know that the issue of closing the workhouse is really important to people. And the two candidates that made it to the next round were two candidates who have committed to closing the workhouse. And so for us, that's important to show that we also have a good sense of where the people of St. Louis are and how the people of St. Louis feel about this. And Noel, if you don't follow him on Twitter, sent a very great tweet the night of the election just saying that this was a mandate on closing the workhouse in so many ways, because that is the real difference, and that's the real dichotomy between a lot of what we've seen. So for us, I think it's also important to note, like of the candidates, like the candidate that had the full support, of a lot of, or the majority of the people in the Board of Aldermen, is also not the candidate that made it to the next round, which I think also says something about how people, if there's a disconnect between what alders and people assume St. Louisans want and what St. Louisans actually want. So these are just some insights I had when kind of thinking about like what the election was and what it meant and what it says about St. Louis. And it's really great for, we are really happy to see that people who close the workhouse, have support in the city, and not only a little bit of support, but monumental support. So I would love to like open up the space for definitely more from you, Jay, or if you have any other reflections you want to add, Noel, but also from everyone to either drop it in the chat or come off mute and just talk about like, just reflect on what this election, what this means to you and what you think it means for the future moving forward. And then we can talk about like our plans. Yes. See that, Cheryl, third time was the charm.
Yeah, we were just talking about how there should be a 3 strikes and you're out just for Lewis Reed for running. You only get to have 3 strikes and then you're yeah, like I echo a lot of what Madison has said, and thank you for setting up that framework about what this means for the city to have, 2 folks who have verbally said that they want to close the workhouse. Yeah, I also think that what's important is this is a chance to like flip the seats at the BOA and making sure that, we have majority of our folks who want to close the workhouse, who want to defund the police in the BOA, because we know, I can put my C4 hat, like we know some of these alders gotta go. C4 gotta go. There's a lot that gotta go. And yeah, so this is a chance also to flip those seats and get majority in the Board of Aldermen.
Thanks, Jay. other thoughts and reflections that people have, even just you personally, what did this election mean to you, and what does it, say for you? Like, what do you vision for St. Louis with the results of this election? Because we still have one more, so it's not over, and like, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. So I see you're off mute, Amelia, so you can go ahead if you want.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think this also represented like a lot of progressive organizing, right? Like Jay was saying, we've seen these aldermanic candidates like coming together and having like a really strong force, right? Where these people are understanding like they can't, all work apart, and there's going to be stronger if we build this coalition. Because the Board of Aldermen is just as important as the mayor's office. If it's just Tashara and no one else, then like, she's also going to have a hard time getting things done. And it's just cool to see that now, this pattern, right? Because it was like Corey last year and now this. And so to see all of these like really big figures kind of come crashing down, I think, this doesn't just feel like a fluke. It feels like this is a pattern that's now happening over and over again, where we're really seeing this like this progressive change, whether people register it as progressive or not, but just people understanding, we need to do real things, not just talk and half-ass, our government.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else have any reflections about, or thoughts or anything about the elections and what this means for St. Louis, or any questions or anything? Where I'm not going to pretend like I'm like an expert on like St. Louis electoral politics, but and Nawal, is there anything you want to add? I know we've kind of like said a lot that we've all, like you and Jay and I, have talked about in the different calls we've had like over the past few days. So, but any other reflections, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I guess, okay, I'll talk in my personal capacity, that I am really, really excited for when Tashara and Darlene look at Lewis and very diplomatically tell him to just be quiet, because he no longer has control of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment. Like, the budget is going to be in the hands of two Black women. I'm very excited about that. And I shouldn't say, I'm assuming that Tashara is going to win. I shouldn't be so explicit about that, but I'm very, very excited about the potential for our city, for us to redefine what our city is, and to take it in a really positive direction. And I think that there's also a lot of regional potential here. And yeah, no, it feels really good, frankly.
Yeah. I think, Amelia, also to your point, just talking about the progressive organizing, I think for me, this is something that we see all the time with Close the Workhouse and the work we do here. Like, when we show up is when things happen. When we show up, even if like, I want to say when we show up, we win, but I mean, winning is hard. We can get legislation passed to close the jail, and the jail still doesn't close. So the line keeps getting moved back. But when we show up, or when people show up, at least it becomes clear what is important to folks. So when we have people showing up to testify at meetings, when we have people coming to be a part of these budget hearings and things, like, this is what's important, and this is what works. And sometimes it might feel like you're just screaming into this void of people who don't agree with you or don't listen to you. But the reality is that progressive candidates and the results of that election are not done in a day. They don't come in a night. They don't come because of one TV ad. They don't come because of like XYZ. And getting legislation passed to close the workhouse, even if we haven't been able to force them to do it yet, it's still, huge and really important, and comes from this type of really intentional work that we do as organizers. And so just, for me, it's energizing, because it can feel hard. And I know for people who have been on this, if this is your first Close the Workhouse call, or movement meeting call, like, welcome. We are so excited to have you here. But for those of you who've been to so many, I know that it can feel like the same thing over and over again, and the same, roadblocks. And so I think for me personally, in my own personal capacity, it's just nice. It feels energized. I just feel really energized. And I'm really excited about that, and excited about constantly being reminded over and over again about the power of people, and the power that people have, and that we make up the institutions that exist, and like, they are there to serve us. So when we're able to come together, when we're able to do it, like, change happens. And that's what Close the Workhouse has really been, that's what's been so much of the success there. So this just reminded me again, after, a cold COVID winter, there is energy in this city for change.
On that note, if I could actually I gave a very gut response. I wasn't expecting you to ask me to
Oh
share.
no, sorry, I was asking Amber. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, but I'd like to be a little bit more concrete about kind of the potential for transformation in our city. And just like kind of talk about a little bit of a 4-year plan, which is just like, you're going to have, first of all, the budget cycle, right? And re-envisioning public safety and defunding the police and closing the workhouse. Then you're going to have the $482 million and potentially huge investments in public Wi-Fi and bus rapid transit and greenways and affordable housing and community justice centers and just a whole bunch of huge and participatory budgeting, because you're going to have to use participatory budgeting to spend that much money, and tons of rental assistance, obviously, and transfers to SLPS and by state and what have you. And then you're also going to do a charter commission to rewrite some of these kind of fundamental problems in the way that our city works. And then you frankly, after the charter commission, which would go to a vote November 2022 probably, if you've got the alignment at the regional level, you go for regional restructuring in an equitable way. And obviously, like Better Together was the horrific way to do it, that was inequitable and designed by elites to entrench their own power. But if it's by the people, then the opportunity to rewrite our region is incredibly hopeful. So.
This is Cheryl. I agree with your last statement, because I really do think we need to come together as a city and a county to really grow as a region. But I did agree with, as we can see, there were some crooks associated with that initiative. But overall, we do need to come together for our region to really grow and bring in more companies and grow the city. But on a personal note, I'm really happy because I worked phone banks for Tashara 4 years ago, and I was really excited. I was thinking she won the election, and she came up short because of some other people running. So I'm so excited this time that she has an opportunity to win. And I know that's minor to all the other things that you just stated in terms of transformation for the city, but I am excited about that too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's exciting. Oh, yeah. Well, thanks everyone for just thinking and like reflecting on that more, because I think it also dovetails nicely into us talking about, well, what do we want to do next then? You know, like how are we know what's next. We know the budget, is the next big arena for us to have this fight once again. This is like all the time. And we know that there's, changing landscape. And then in a lot of ways, it seems like this election was like a mandate for closing the workhouse. So then what are, the next steps? Well, something that we hear a lot from people and from alders is that, well, the people in my ward don't want this. The people in my ward don't care about this. The people who you're talking to and who you bring to these meetings or XYZ don't represent the people in my ward, blah, blah. That's what people say. And they can look to the fact that we aren't able to have impacted people speak at every single public safety committee or XYZ meeting that's in the middle of the day on Zoom, and pretty inaccessible formats for people to be able to connect. Look at that and say, okay, but what I look at now is a map, showing election results and showing what parts of the city voted for, what platforms, what part of the city voted for things that contain certain issues. And it's clear that there was widespread support for people who want to close the workhouse. And so we know that that's there. And so a big push for us over the next, month and a half until when we stop, is base building. We really want to get a big push to make sure that we are able to, mobilize and have a group of people who really do represent the widespread support, of people in the city and the widespread support of impacted people and Black people who in the city who do want to close the workhouse, and people who aren't always people who can jump on a Zoom call, people who can't always, be keeping up with every Facebook event, people who are living living a life that has experiences that means that they don't have like the luxury of free time or extra time to be able to be in spaces like this. So we are really trying to launch a new organizing plan that focuses a lot on base building and leadership development of people supporting Close the Workhouse, but especially members and impacted folks. And so what that means, for us is like lots of calls, lots of texts, lots of one-on-ones, beginning to get people engaged. And so we've scheduled, we just made a Facebook event about it, but we scheduled basically over the next month, multiple phone and text banking sessions. And what that's going to be is just like our power hours. They're coming back. If you were at power hour before, we have them coming again. And so this is going to be a time where you can come and get in a Zoom with us instead of being together like we normally are, and call or text through lists that we have of people all throughout the city, to just tell people about the campaign. There are lots of people that know about it, but don't know, they've heard about it, or they've seen a caravan gone by, or they've seen a mobile billboard, but don't know how to get involved, don't realize that it's a place where you can start doing this organizing work, and also a place where, especially if you're an impacted person, build community with other people who have had similar experiences with you in this criminal legal system, and help you build skills and help you have access to resources. So we just want to make sure that we're really reaching out to people. And so we're going to ask for a lot of your help in the coming month, to be a part of these phone and text making sessions, to help us reach out to as many people as possible. Because, this campaign is going to win, because at the end of the day, this is what people in St. Louis want. And like I've said, when we show up, we'll win. And Kayla Reed wants it done. And if Kayla wants it, it's going to happen, because Kayla's going to organize to make it happen, and drag it into existence if that need be, because the will of the people is not going to be denied. But a lot of that for us now is going to be focused on rebuilding the base in the way that we had been doing a lot before, but then COVID, really made it harder to do. And especially as we've been having to spend so much time focusing on and trying to hold our officials accountable to the laws that they've passed, we realize and understand how important it is for us to make sure that we're continuing to build this support, so that when we need people to testify, or when we need XYZ, that people, are going to be there. People, especially who, like I've said before, don't always have just easy access to all of these things, or maybe don't even realize that you can testify, or like that my experience is what you want to hear being testified, because even that can sound like kind of formal in its own thing. So that's going to be our next big push, really big base building push. And so we're really going to be leaning on our volunteers to help us. Because, we want to reach every ward, but we know we're not, we're probably not going to be able to reach all the people in all the wards by the time the budget season starts. But we're going to especially be focusing on the North City wards, where it was very clear that people supported candidates that wanted to close the workhouse. And so we know that support is there, and those people are there and ready to be engaged with. And that's the work that we're going to be doing to get there. Jay, feel free to add like anything I missed, like any other thoughts and reflections on the kind of vision that we have for the next at least month or two.
Yeah, we know that we are only as strong as our base is. So we need all of our people, and also the people who are, closest to the problem or closest to the solution. So we need to be pulling in our impacted folks, our impacted family, making sure that, one, they have what they need to survive and thrive, and that they can be a part of this campaign, and like really advocating and going hard for this campaign. So yeah, we're, like Madison beautifully explained, hosting these text bank, these power hours, getting like ward captains. If you know somebody who is in some of these Black wards, and some of the wards we're focusing on are 2, 3, 4, 5, 27, 22, 21. If you know somebody who is in these wards that could be a ward captain, somebody who is interested in knowing more about the campaign, please, connect. We want to talk to them, connect us with them. Come to our text banks and help us, find these folks as we go into, the budget session as our chance to defund the workhouse. Also, I dropped the link for Power Hour.
Yeah. There's a Google sign up sheet like in the Facebook event. And so you sign up there, and we'll send you out the link. If you've been with us when we've done power hours before, when we were trying to figure them out for the first time last year, we didn't do as much like registration and stuff for them, but we really want to be better about, following up and confirming and making sure that people are going to be coming and being a part of it. So we'll have that thing for you to register through. As always, so they're going to be for an hour. All the dates are on the the Facebook thing, but basically I can just say that the majority of them are like Mondays or there's a couple like Monday nights from 6 to 7, and then like Thursdays during the day from 1 to 2. There's this upcoming Monday is going to be our first one on the 8th, and that is going to be 1 to 2 on Monday because we're all busy that Monday night. So basically next week, next Monday and next Thursday, we're going to have 2 text banking shifts, both from 1 to 2 p.m. And then from there, there's going to be some text and phone banking. But so we have some nighttime options and some daytime options. Some will be text, some will be phone. And of course, if you can't stay for the whole time, that's fine. You know, if you're able to come in, get a list and start calling or texting and then working on it some on your own, and we can follow up with you to see, you know, the people that you've been in contact with, that's totally fine. So just don't ever feel like if I can't make it to the whole thing, I can't come. And definitely, please share it with anyone, you know, who feels comfortable. Jay will tell you text banking, you know, it's just a lot of like clicking a button, basically. So we just need like more people helping us to click more buttons so that we can get more messages out to people. But we'll be sending out, you know, more information, but definitely go and check on our Facebook page because the event and the registration is there. So does anyone have any questions about anything we talked about tonight? The budget process, the, you know, political landscape here in the city, or the organizing plan and the volunteer opportunities that we have coming up? Anybody have any questions or reflections? All right. Well, if that's the case, we can finish a little early tonight. We also have smaller groups. I know that sometimes makes it goes faster, but we're really happy to have you all here with us. Like I said at the beginning, I understand the pandemic has been going on for a long time. For Arch City, we started working virtually March 16th last year, so it's almost been a full year of working virtually for me, and I'm really beginning to feel it. So appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. And please just be on the lookout and be sharing our upcoming volunteer opportunities and our phone and text banking. And really, please come and help us as we're making this big push to base build as we prepare for this budget cycle and this budget process where we're going to really help get to finally get the workhouse closed. So thanks so much, everyone, for coming. We love y'all. This is a family. We love to see you. Let the phone banking begin. Yes, love that. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank y'all.